My wife Elena and I are living with a secret. It's a beautiful, tropical, non-refundable secret, and it feels like we're holding a live grenade with the pin pulled. Every time I open my email, I see the booking confirmation for 2 round-trip tickets to Hawaii, scheduled to depart on December 22nd. Just looking at the subject line feels like an act of rebellion. I can almost smell the plumeria and the salt in the air. But then I look at the calendar on the wall. It's December 1st. The grenade in my hand feels heavier. For my in-laws, Christmas isn't just a holiday, it's a mandate. The Christmas mandate, as we call it, is an ironclad law established the moment Elena and I said, I'd exactly 5 years ago. I was 30, she was 29. We were excited to start our lives and build our own traditions. Her parents had other ideas. They sat us down in their formal living room, the one with the plastic on the couches, and laid out the terms. It wasn't a discussion, it was a decree. Christmas was to be spent at their house. Arrive no later than noon on Christmas Eve, depart no earlier than the evening of the 26th. No exceptions, no negotiations. For 4 years we complied for the sake of keeping the peace. The first year, it felt okay. We were newlyweds, and it seemed reasonable to spend the first Christmas with family. We showed up with smiles, played our part, and drove home feeling like we'd done our duty. We told ourselves, next year we'll do our own thing. But next year came and the expectation was set in stone. The phone calls started in October. Just confirming your arrival time for the 24th. I've already bought the turkey, it's a big one this year. Any hint of hesitation was met with a wave of guilt. But it's tradition it wouldn't be Christmas without you two here. So we went. Year 3 was the same story, but our smiles were more forced. The drive to their house felt longer. We'd spend the car ride talking about all the things we'd rather be doing, a quiet Christmas at home with a movie marathon and Chinese takeout, or a trip to the mountains to see real snow. We'd dream up these alternate realities where our holidays belong to us. Then we'd pull into their driveway, take a deep breath, and put on the masks of the happy, compliant children for the next 72 hours. By year 4, a quiet resentment had taken root. It was about the principle of the thing. We were adults. I was 34. Elena was 33. We had careers and a mortgage, a life we had built together. Yet every December, we were relegated back to the kids' table, metaphorically speaking. Our autonomy vanished. Our holiday plans were an asset that belonged to her parents. They owned our Christmas, and they guarded it jealously. The breaking point came a few weeks ago on a cold November night. We were making dinner, and Elena was staring quietly out the kitchen window. I asked her what was wrong. I can't do it again, Adrian, she said with a sigh. I can't do a 5th year. In that moment, something shifted. It was a quiet, mutual recognition. We had been bending for so long that we were about to break. We talked for hours, realizing the mandate wasn't about family togetherness. If it were, they would have been happy to come to our house 1 year or meet us somewhere in the middle. No, this was about control. It was about them maintaining their position as heads of the family. We knew that if we didn't do something now, we never would. This would be our life every Christmas, a carbon copy of the last. We decided right then and there to reclaim our holiday, to reclaim ourselves. We opened the laptop huddled together in the glow of the screen and plotted our escape. We looked at flights to warm places, cold places, any place that wasn't her parents' house. And then we saw it a 1-week, all-inclusive package to Hawaii, December 22nd to the 29th. It was sunshine, freedom, and an ocean between us and the mandate. My hand was shaking as I moved the cursor over the Confirm Purchase button. Elena put her hand on top of mine. Together, she whispered. I clicked. The confirmation email arrived seconds later. The decision was made, non-refundable. No turning back. It was the most terrifying and exhilarating purchase I have ever made. Which brings us to now. For the past 2 weeks, we've lived in a bubble of secret joy and mounting anxiety. We'll be watching TV and one of us will whisper, Hawaii, and we'll both break into a grin. We've been secretly watching travel vlogs and looking up the best beaches. It feels like we're a team preparing for a battle we know is just over the horizon. But the silence from their end is deafening. It's the calm before the storm. My in-laws are creatures of habit, and the Christmas planning call usually comes the first week of December. Any day now, my phone will ring, and it will be my mother-in-law, her voice cheerful, completely oblivious to the mutiny we've planned. She won't ask if we're coming. She'll ask what time we plan on arriving, if I can bring my usual cheesecake, if Elena remembered a gift for some distant cousin. The questions will be built on the absolute certainty of our compliance. And we will have to tell her. We will have to let go of that grenade we've been holding. We have to tell them that not only are we not coming for Christmas, we will be on a beach 10 hours away soaking up the sun. We're not just breaking tradition, we're shattering it. I have no idea what will happen when the dust settles. All I know is the phone is going to ring, and we have to be ready to answer it. The days that followed felt like living in a spy movie, except the top secret mission was our own happiness. Every buzz of my phone, every notification on Elena's sent a jolt of adrenaline through my veins. We'd look at each other across the room, eyes wide, before one of us would cautiously check the screen. A spam call, a text from a friend, a work email. Each time we'd exhale a breath, we didn't realize we were holding. It was a strange limbo suspended between the future joy of our trip and the impending dread of the confrontation. We became hyper-aware of their patterns. My mother-in-law, a creature of meticulous planning, always called on the first Saturday of December. That gave her 3 full weeks to coordinate menus, delegate tasks, and organize sleeping arrangements. It was a military operation disguised as holiday cheer. So when Saturday, December 2nd arrived, the tension in our house was thick enough to cut with a knife. We spent the day pretending to be normal. We did laundry, went grocery shopping, and cleaned the bathroom. But it was all a performance. Every action was underscored by the silent question, when will she call? We kept our phones on the kitchen counter, face up like twin soldiers standing guard. We spoke in hushed tones as if she could somehow hear us plotting from her own home 2 states away. By 5 p.m., nothing. By 7 p.m., still silence. We made dinner, the clinking of our forks against the plates, echoing in the quiet. I watched Elena push her food around her appetite gone. Maybe she forgot, she said, though neither of us believed it. Forgetting the Christmas planning call would be like forgetting her own birthday. It was an impossibility. Or maybe she's busy, I offered, trying to sound reassuring. Maybe they had something come up. She just nodded, but her eyes were glued to her phone. The night wore on and the call never came. We went to bed feeling a bizarre mix of relief and even greater anxiety. A delay wasn't a reprieve. It was just a postponement of the inevitable. It meant the storm was still gathering strength just further out at sea. Sunday was the same, a long, drawn-out day of waiting for a verdict we already knew. We tried to distract ourselves with a movie, but I must have checked my phone a dozen times during the opening credits. It was exhausting. Living with this secret was like carrying a heavy weight, and it was starting to wear on our shoulders. The joyful rebellion we'd felt when booking the tickets was slowly eroding under the psychological warfare of waiting. Monday evening, the 5th of December, was when it finally happened. We were cleaning up after dinner. I was washing dishes, my hands deep in the warm, soapy water, and Elena was drying. We were talking about something completely mundane, a project at my work, a funny story about her coworker. For a few minutes, we had almost forgotten. We were just a normal couple living a normal life. And then her phone sitting on the counter lit up and began to vibrate. The screen flashed a picture of her smiling parents. The name read, Mom. Everything stopped. The water from the faucet seemed to roar in the sudden silence. Elena froze a dinner plate halfway to the cabinet. We locked eyes. This was it, the moment of truth. My heart started hammering against my ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. Elena took a deep, shaky breath and wiped her hands on a towel. She picked up the phone, her thumb hovering over the green accept icon. She looked at me, a question in her eyes. I nodded, turning off the faucet and drying my own hands. Put it on speaker, I mouthed. She nodded back, a flicker of resolve hardening her expression. We were in this together. She answered the call. Hi, Mom. Elena's voice was a masterpiece of casual warmth. You would never know that our entire family dynamic was about to be put on trial. Elena, sweetie, how are you? How's Adrian? My mother-in-law's voice was exactly as I remembered it, bubbly, cheerful, and completely unaware of the bomb we were about to drop on her perfectly curated holiday plans. "We're good, Mom. Adrian's right here," Elena said, gesturing for me to lean in closer. "Hi, honey," she chirped. "Hey, how are you?" I managed my own voice, sounding a little tight. "Oh, we're wonderful. Your father and I were just finalizing the Christmas grocery list. It's going to be a big one this year. Your aunt and uncle are coming in on the 23rd, so we'll have a full house." She paused, and I could almost hear the click of her pen as she checked off a mental box. "So I was just calling to nail down your arrival time. If you can get here by lunchtime on the 24th, that would be perfect. It'll give us plenty of time to get everything ready before the evening service." There it was. Not, "Are you coming?" but, "What time are you arriving?" The assumption was so absolute, so deeply ingrained that it felt like a physical pressure. I could feel Elena tense up beside me. This was our opening. Elena cleared her throat. "Actually, Mom, that's what I needed to talk to you about." The cheerful momentum on the other end of the line came to a screeching halt. The silence that followed was heavy with confusion. "Talk to me about what, sweetie, is everything okay?" Yes, everything's great," Elena said quickly. "It's just, our plans for Christmas are a little different this year." I held my breath. I could feel the tectonic plates of our family shifting beneath my feet. Different how my mother-in-law's voice had lost its bubbly edge. It was now cautious questioning. "Did you need to come in on the 23rd instead? That's fine, we can make it work. It'll just be a little tight with your aunt and uncle arriving." "No, Mom, it's not that," Elena said, her voice gentle but firm. "Adrian and we're not going to be able to make it for Christmas this year." Dead silence. For a solid 5 seconds, the only sound was the hum of our refrigerator. It was so quiet I was sure she could hear my heart pounding through the phone. I imagined her on the other end, standing in her kitchen, her perfectly organized list on the counter in front of her, a look of complete bewilderment on her face. Finally, she let out a short, nervous laugh. "Oh, you two, don't be silly. What are you talking about?" "Of course you're coming for Christmas. You always come for Christmas." She said it like it was a law of physics. The sun rises in the east, the tide comes in, and Adrian and Elena come for Christmas. It wasn't a plan, it was a fact of nature. "Mom, I'm serious," Elena insisted. "We've made other plans." "Other plans." The words were repeated slowly, as if she were trying to translate them from a foreign language. "What other plans could you possibly have? It's Christmas." I squeezed Elena's hand, giving it a little reassuring pulse. She glanced at me, took another breath, and delivered the final blow. "Adrian and I booked a trip. We're going to Hawaii." The silence that followed was different. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was a cold, heavy silence, the kind that precedes a storm. I could picture the gears turning in her head, the denial warring with the dawning, horrifying realization that her daughter was serious. "Hawaii!" She finally whispered the word, sounding like a profanity. "You're joking. This is a joke, right? A very, very bad joke." "It's not a joke, Mom," I said, deciding it was time for my voice to be heard. "We leave on December 22nd. Adrian..." Her voice was sharp now, laced with an edge of accusation, as if she'd just realized the identity of the co-conspirator. "You're going along with this..." "We decided this together," I said, keeping my tone level and calm. "It's something we've wanted to do for a long time." "For a long time, you've never mentioned it," she shot back. "For 4 years you have come here. For 4 years we have had a plan, a tradition, our family tradition." The phrase "our family tradition" hung in the air. She didn't say a family tradition. She said our, as in hers, the one she owned and operated. Elena spoke up again, her voice pleading now. "Mom, please try to understand. We love our Christmases with you, but we're a family too. Adrian and I wanted to have one Christmas, just the two of us, to start a tradition of our own. A tradition of your own." My mother-in-law scoffed, and now the disbelief was curdling into something much uglier. It was a mix of anger and betrayal. By abandoning your family, by running off to some beach, instead of being with the people who love you, what is there to even do in Hawaii on Christmas? It's sacrilegious. The trigger had been pulled. The grenade we'd been holding was finally released, and we could hear it rolling across the floor of her perfectly planned holiday. The pin was out. The explosion was coming. We knew this was the point of no return. We had told her. We had shattered the mandate, and now we just had to stand in the ringing silence and wait for the blast. The blast came, but it wasn't a loud explosion. It was a low, rumbling earthquake that started deep in my mother-in-law's voice. You can't," she stammered, the anger giving way to a desperate, frantic energy. "You can't do this. I've already told everyone you're coming. The plans are made. Elena, what about your grandmother? She's been looking forward to seeing you all year." Elena's grip on my hand tightened. The grandma card, it was a classic and it was powerful. "Mom, we'll see Grandma before we go. We can drive down next weekend." "It's not the same," she snapped. "It's not Christmas. It's about being together on the day. That's what family does." Suddenly, her voice was muffled, and I heard my father-in-law's stern baritone voice in the background. "Give me the phone, Carol." A moment of rustling, and then a new voice, colder and heavier, came on the line. "Adrian, what is this nonsense?" My father-in-law didn't do emotional outbursts. He was a man who dealt in facts, in logic, in authority. His disapproval was a physical weight. "It's not nonsense, sir," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Elena and I have booked a trip. We're going to Hawaii for the week of Christmas." "Cancel it," he said. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. "We can't," I said simply. "It's non-refundable." I could almost hear him grinding his teeth. The idea of losing money was offensive to him, but the idea of losing control was a declaration of war. "So you're telling me that a few $100s in airline tickets are more important than your family, than your wife's mother who has spent weeks planning for this? Is that the kind of husband you are?" He was trying to drive a wedge between us, to paint me as the irresponsible, selfish husband leading his precious daughter astray. I glanced at Elena. Her eyes were shimmering, her lower lip trembling just slightly. She was hurt, but she wasn't breaking. "Dad," she said, her voice finding its strength. "This wasn't just Adrian's idea, this was our idea. We decided this together. We used our money to buy our tickets for our trip." She emphasized every word, reclaiming ownership of the decision. "For 4 years, we've done Christmas your way. We just wanted one for ourselves." "For yourselves?" he scoffed. "You are part of this family. There is no for yourselves. When you got married, you joined us. And in this family, we spend Christmas together. It's not a negotiation. It's a condition. It's the mandate we all agreed to." And there it was. The truth laid bare. He didn't say it was a tradition. He didn't say it was about love or togetherness. He called it a condition, a mandate. It was a contract, and in his mind, we had just committed a fundamental breach. This wasn't about missing Christmas dinner. This was about insubordination. He saw our marriage not as the creation of a new family, but as the acquisition of a new subsidiary for his own. We never agreed to that. I said, my voice colder than I intended. "That was something you told us. A real agreement is mutual. This was an expectation you placed on us." "It's the expectation of respect," he thundered. "The respect that a daughter and her husband are supposed to show their parents. You are showing us the ultimate disrespect by choosing a beach over your own mother and father." "We are not choosing a beach over you," Elena said, her voice finally cracking with the sheer frustration of it all. "We are choosing us for once. We are trying to build our own life, our own traditions. Why can't you understand that?" "Because there's nothing to understand," my mother-in-law cried, having clearly snatched the phone back. "You're being selfish, Elena. Terribly, terribly selfish. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us, by breaking your mother's heart right before Christmas." The guilt trip was in full force, a tidal wave of manipulation designed to drown Elena and pull her back to shore. I saw her falter, the years of conditioning kicking in. Before she could apologize or back down, I squeezed her hand and spoke into the phone. "We're sorry that this is upsetting, but the decision is made. The tickets are booked. We are going. We love you both. But this is happening." The line went silent for a moment, and then my father-in-law's voice came back, devoid of all emotion. "Fine. If you get on that plane, don't expect us to be here when you get back." The line went dead. The fallout was immediate and absolute. A wall of silence descended from their side of the family. Texts went unanswered. Our calls went straight to voicemail. It was like we had ceased to exist. In the 2 weeks leading up to our departure on December 22nd, the silence was a constant oppressive presence in our home. There were moments of doubt. One evening, I found Elena sitting on the couch staring at a photo of her and her mom from a Christmas past. Her eyes were filled with tears. "Maybe we made a mistake," she whispered. "Maybe we should have just waited one more year." I sat down next to her and put my arm around her. "And what about next year, or the year after that?" When would it have been our turn? This was never going to be easy, Elle. We knew that. They forced us to make this choice. We're not breaking the family. We're just defining our part of it. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I know. It just hurts." "I know," I said, "but this pain is temporary. The freedom we're fighting for, that's forever." That conversation became our anchor. Every time one of us felt the weight of their silent treatment, the other would remind us why we were doing it. Packing our suitcases became an act of defiance. With every folded shirt and bottle of sunscreen, we were reaffirming our decision. We were choosing us. The anxiety was real, a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. But underneath it, a small warm feeling was starting to grow relief. The morning of December 22nd arrived cold and gray. The house felt quiet, emptier than usual. We drove to the airport in a strange state of nervous excitement. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Elena's sister. "Mom and Dad are devastated. I can't believe you're actually going through with this. You're tearing this family apart." I showed it to Elena. She read it, took a deep breath, and then did something that made me prouder than I've ever been. She turned her phone off completely and put it in her bag. I did the same. We were cutting the cord. Walking through the terminal, it felt like we were passing through a portal. We checked our bags. We went through security. We found our gate. With every step, the cold gray world of their mandate and their silence seemed to fade a little further behind us. When they called our boarding group, we stood up, held hands, and walked down the jet bridge. Finding our seats buckling in the finality of it all began to sink in. This was it. There was no turning back. The decision made on November 15th was now physically irreversible. As the plane pushed back from the gate and began to taxi onto the runway, I looked over at Elena. A single tear was rolling down her cheek, but she was smiling. It was a smile of release, of exhaustion, of victory. The engines roared to life, and the plane surged forward, pressing us back into our seats. I watched out the window as the ground fell away, the city shrinking beneath us until it was just a pattern of lights. We were airborne. We were free. We landed in Hawaii to a world of impossible color and warmth. The air that hit us when we stepped off the plane wasn't the bitter cold of a family feud. It was a soft, warm breeze that smelled of flowers and salt. That first evening, we sat on the balcony of our hotel room watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. The sky was a blaze of orange and pink. We didn't talk about her parents. We didn't talk about the angry texts or the silent treatment. We just sat there together, listening to the sound of the waves. The victory wasn't in winning the argument. We hadn't won anything back home. The relationship with my in-laws was broken, and it would take a long, long time to fix, if ever. The victory was right here in this moment. It was the quiet realization that we had successfully taken control of our own lives. We had faced down a 5-year mandate, weathered the emotional storm, and stood united. We had bought back our own Christmas, and we had paid for it not just with money, but with courage. For the first time in our marriage, the holidays belonged to us. We had broken their mandate, and in its place we had started a tradition of our very own. And it was beautiful.